Welcome into the Michigan Football Report. We are previewing Michigan hosting Nebraska Saturday at high noon from the Big House in Ann Arbor. It'll be the Big Ten opener for both schools. Michigan playing their fourth game, Nebraska only playing their third game because their opener versus Akron was canceled because of a long delay. It was a night game, got into the 10:30 p.m. range, and they decided to cancel it. Reschedule is pending. So take a look at what we're dealing with here. Michigan 2-1 on the year, 2 straight wins after that opening 7-point loss against Notre Dame on the road. 2 straight home games against Cupcakes in Western Michigan and SMU. Now on the other side, Nebraska lost a close one in their opener on September 8th against Colorado, a decent Colorado team potentially, but certainly not a loss that you want to take if you're Scott Frost in your opener. Followed that up with a loss against Troy at home last week with their starting quarterback Adrian Martinez, who is the first true freshman to start a game for Nebraska in their history of an opener in the history of the school. Martinez missed the second game. He got injured with about 2.5 minutes left against Colorado, and they were not able to hold on to the ball. Colorado went down and scored. Backup walk-on quarterback came in the last minute, was not able to get the job done. So you see, Michigan defeated SMU last week 45-20, and they are 2-3 in their last 5 games overall. Really 2-4 actually if you count the loss. 4 straight losses, 3 last year, 1 this year, and have won 2 straight games following the loss to Notre Dame. Want to tell you guys about Reveal Suits. Reveal Suits is the most amazing suit coat you could ever imagine. They're sponsoring the Michigan Football Report. They have hooked me up with one of these bad boys. They take a look. It is lined with maize and blue on the inside. I can roll up my sleeves and I can show you the maize and blue if those will show up in there. You can get your hands on one of these. They're not yet available to the public. We're going to extend the $100 offer. They're going to extend the $100 off pre-sale offer, $295 versus the sale price of $395 if you wait. It is extended now through September 20th. Email them info@revealsuits.com to get on the list. Lock in that $100 price. Tell them that James Yoder, Michigan Football Report, and Chat Sports sent you their way. All right, let's keep it rolling here. Take a look at what Michigan's done against the spread so far this year. 2-1 as a record for the team, but 1-2 against the spread. They did not cover last week versus SMU. So the 3 games, 2 of them have gone under the game total, and 1 has gone over. The Notre Dame game was in under, and then the second game against Western Michigan was as well. Last week's 45-20 victory over SMU went well over the 50-some-odd points, 53.5 I believe it was, with a 65 total. This week, 17-point favorites versus Nebraska at home. Flip it over to the Nebraska side. They're 0-2 on the standings. Also 0-2 against the spread, with both games going under the over/under number for them as well. So if you're betting on Nebraska, betting against them, taking the under seems like a pretty good bet for you. You'd be 4-4 had you bet that. They're heading to the Big House against the Michigan Wolverines, 17-point underdogs. They are 0-2 on the year. So brings you to my question for you, the audience. Facebook Live and the Chat Sports YouTube channel. Can Michigan cover the 17-point spread against Nebraska? The interesting part about this spread is it started at 18. It bounced up to 19.5 on Tuesday, dropped to 17 on Wednesday. So from what I'm looking at, that potentially means that the guys who make these sports lines may believe that Adrian Martinez, Nebraska's opening day true freshman starting quarterback, maybe he's going to be back, maybe he's not injured, will play. The latest from Nebraska is that he's day-to-day game time decision. But will Michigan cover that 17-point spread? A pretty big number for a Big Ten team, and that is the line we're at today. I'm sure it'll fluctuate a little more as we creep up towards game time. If you believe Michigan can do it, if you believe they can't do it, go ahead and put a little money where your mouth is there. Put some money on them with BETDSI. They're our trusted sports book here at the Michigan Football Report and Chat Sports, and they've got an amazing promo code for Michigan football fans only. Go to chatsports.com/bet. It'll redirect you to BETDSI's page where you can type in promo code GOBLUE, 120% cash deposit bonus. You put 100 down, you get 120. You put in 50, an extra 120. You put in 50, you get an extra 60. You put in 500, you get an extra $600. You can do math. If you're following the Michigan Wolverines, you can kind of take the math from there, but I would definitely recommend you check out BETDSI if you want to put some money on the Michigan Wolverines. Let's take a look at Nebraska, how they're doing in the statistical categories nationwide on offense. So first up, Nebraska 464 yards on offense, number 42 in the nation, much better than the Michigan Wolverines, 84th in passing at 206, but where their strength is so far is in the running game. No surprise that their head coach Scott Frost, who was the quarterback in the heyday in the mid to late 90s, would implement a power rushing attack, that can move the ball no matter who the opponent is. They've scored 23.5 points in the game, and that has really been their struggle, is being able to move the ball 464.5 yards a game, being able to run it, do a little bit of passing, of course, over 200 a game, but cannot get the ball in the end zone, settling for field goals a lot, settling on stalled drives, and quite a few turnovers, so only averaging 23.5 points in those two losses, 102nd in the nation. Flip it over to their quarterback, Adrian Martinez, true freshman. Big time recruiting get for Scott Frost as he came over to Nebraska after leading UCF to an asterisk national title last year. 15 of 20 in the opener for 187 yards. The more important thing, though, to point out there, 15 carries for him for 117 yards and 2 touchdowns. So kind of for 3 touchdowns, 187 through the air, 75% completion percentage, and then another 117 on the ground in 15 carries. Definitely a worry and a concern for the Michigan defense, as they have not fared well against mobile quarterbacks really forever, but in the John Brown era, specifically. If Martinez doesn't go, who will be the quarterback for Nebraska? It's this man, Andrew Bunch, former walk-on, I guess just walk-on quarterback, not even former. He's just a walk-on. 23 of 36 in his game plus of action so far this year. 226 yards, so not bad. He can throw the ball. Almost all that, of course, came against Troy. 2 touchdowns, but then the 2 interceptions against a team like Troy was one of the things that kept them out of the end zone, stalled drives, and of course led to the loss. Nebraska at home against Troy. One of the more shocking, maybe one of the more devastating losses in the history of that program, of Nebraska's program. So keep an eye out for both of these guys. It's looking more and more like Martinez, someone who I think can give Michigan a lot of problems, will get the nod. And if he can stay healthy, if Michigan doesn't put some pads on him, knock him to the ground, he could do some damage against Michigan's defense. Take a look at the Nebraska defense. Total defense, not bad, 324 yards per game, giving up 230 through the air. They are very stingy against the run. When we get into the Michigan offense here in a moment, I'll talk about what I think the keys of the game are against this defense for Jim Harbaugh's Michigan football offense. Take a look at the rushing. They're giving up some passing, stingy on rushing the ball. They do well running it. They don't let you run against it, so it's surprising that they're 0-2 against two rather mediocre teams in Colorado and Troy. Only give up 93.5 points per game. Most times if you run the ball, you don't give up runs, yards on the ground, you will win. So Nebraska is bucking the trends in a bad direction when it comes to running the football and stopping the run. Scoring, giving up 28.5 points a game through their 2 games. 24 against Troy, and then Colorado dropped 33 on them. So they give up some points, but they haven't given up 40, 50 points a game. They've been pretty average, number 89 in the country, but I think that number will continue to come down as Scott Frost gets his system in, and they move into the Big Ten play, where sometimes it's more 3 yards and a cloud of dust. Someone to keep an eye on for number 12, Luke Gifford, linebacker, 14 tackles. 5 tackles for loss on the year. Someone Shea Patterson is going to have to identify at the line of scrimmage, make sure that Michigan's got an adequate blocker on him, and that he doesn't cause chaos, whether it's when Shea drops back to pass or they run a play to a running back. 2.5 sacks, definitely something to keep your eye on. No picks. Flipping over to his counterpart in the linebacking core, TYRIN Ferguson, 14 tackles on the year, 3 tackles for loss, and a sack. Some pretty nice numbers out of that linebacking crew for Nebraska. So those are the keys those are the players to watch for Nebraska Cornhuskers. Want to tell you again about Reveal Suits. They are sponsoring the Michigan Football Report all of the 2018 season. I'm going to open this bad boy up. You check this out. I'm going to lean to the right, lean to the left. You kind of see what's going on here. It's a maize and blue lined coat. You got the maize background, the blue block M. You walk into a meeting with Ohio State, Michigan State, any schools grads that Michigan plays in football or basketball. Michigan gets a win Monday morning. You are the man. You get $100 off if you email them. by the end of September 20th. They've extended it out at my request. I've had so many people say, damn it, James, I missed the Reveal Suits $100 off. Can you still hook it up? Called those guys up. They let me extend it a few more days, but you can't wait. You've got to act now. info@revealsuits.com. Reveal Suits, it's what's inside. Keep it moving over to the Michigan football offense. Take a look where they're standing statistically through 3 games. Total offense, a very disappointing number 84 overall in the nation. A lot of that, of course, coming from their poor performance against Notre Dame. 397 yards total per game, 209 through the air, 187.7 on the ground. So fairly balanced from that perspective. 37 points a game, only 17 versus Notre Dame, went to 49 against SMU, and then of course 45 this past week against SMU. Flip it over to Shea Patterson, the quarterback. When I saw him play in person, I wasn't necessarily super impressed against Notre Dame. Maybe that was just a little bit of the beers and the Notre Dame atmosphere, and not seeing Michigan put points on the board. Shea having 2 turnovers. I didn't think he played that well in person. His stats turned out to be a little better than I thought, throwing for over 70% completion percentage so far this year, 589 yards. 6 touchdowns passing, 2 interceptions. One though last week, Sean McCune in the corner, front corner of the end zone. I didn't think was Shea's fault. McCune kind of gave up on the ball. Jim Harbaugh called him out multiple times this week, McCune, for not making a play. Funny enough about Shea Patterson, he would already have beat any Michigan quarterback from 2017 when it comes to touchdown passes. Through 3 games, you toss his stats in 2017, he would have been your leading touchdown passer last season. So you've seen where the Michigan football team has progressed on offense. They couldn't get any receivers, the hands on the ball. Take a look at the running game with Chris Evans. Got the start last week versus SMU. 30 carries on the season, 172 yards, averaging 5.7 yards per carry in 3 games. Really did most of his damage against SMU. Got a little bit of action against Western Michigan, of course. It was almost completely not seen at all in the running game. I believe only 2 carries against Notre Dame, so they're finally getting him involved. Karan Higdon out with injury last week, and so Chris Evans got the start, though Evans did leave the game. Some people call it cramps. I have been told it is definitely a hamstring issue. He did practice this week. He was in pads, at least as of Wednesday. We'll see what happens with him. Higdon, I'm told, has been practicing as well. If neither one of these guys who have both left the last 2 games with injuries can go, you're talking about a true freshman, or I'm sorry, a walk-on junior, redshirt sophomore in True Wilson, or a guy like Amari Samuels, who has only seen the field a handful of plays as your starting running back versus Nebraska in the Big Ten opener in Jim Harbaugh's 4th year. Take a look at the Michigan football defense. 276 yards given up on the ground. That's number 12 in the nation. I expect that to only continue. Michigan 3 straight years they've had a defense when it comes to total D in the top 5 in the nation. I believe they were number 3 in 2017, even with the putrid offense that they had to account for from the other side of the ball. Passing, giving up 154. I thought that SMU did a lot better through the air than I would have expected. Safety play, certainly give up a few plays that you don't want to see. And then and the corners got beat on quite a few slants last week, something Nebraska will definitely exploit. Over to the rushing, Michigan giving up 121 on the ground per game, number 37 in the country. That's an area I really expect to come down. I think Michigan can get that down by 15, 20 yards under that 100, at least over the next few weeks until we get into the Wisconsin game. 3-ish weeks from now, you've got Nebraska, who they're doing well on the ground, but Michigan should be able to do well. Northwestern has not shown much, and then you've got Illinois. So we'll see where these numbers look in a few weeks. Michigan's only giving up 15 points per game, 15.7, good for number 24 in the nation. Noah FURBUSH was a guy who made a lot of plays last week, but most notably that interception against SMU. He's a quasi-starter. When Michigan comes out in a 3-4 set, he is getting the starting nod right now in that outside linebacker, which kind of could be considered a defensive end linebacker hybrid when they go to a 3-4 set. So he is your starter there, although I wouldn't call him a starter if you're talking about their base 11. Devin Bush, though, is a starter, and he's actually probably my Michigan football MVP, at least in the defense. I believe him and Shea Patterson have to be vying for the overall MVP. Maybe Chase Winovich, some people have said. 18 tackles on the year, 2 tackles for losses, a sack. no interceptions, but he is a difference maker. He definitely is a guy I see flying over the ball. SMU's coach, Sonny Dykes, said he may be the best linebacker I've ever seen in all my years of football. So high praise from SMU's coach on Devin Bush. Let's take it to my keys to the game for Michigan football against Nebraska this Saturday, 12 o'clock at the Big House in Ann Arbor on, I believe the game's on FS1. Lana, give me a thumbs up on that if that's true. FS1, a channel that I spend so much time on, you have no idea. Heavy sarcasm. I am James Yoder, the face of Michigan football media. Let's get into my 10 keys to the game for Michigan versus Nebraska this week. Number one, you've got to start strong on offense. The last Notre Dame game, they really struggled. 58 minutes, so they put a touchdown on the board against Notre Dame. This past week, their first 4 drives, take a look at these here. I'm going to throw them up on the screen. Punt, punt, punt. Then they get into the red zone. Interception, Shea Patterson trying to make a play happen, directing guys to move around in the end zone. A tight end does not come up for the ball, and as such, SMU steps in front of it and intercepts the ball. After this first quarter versus SMU, they went in 6 straight scoring drives to end the game. 5 of those touchdowns, 1 interception, and of course they had that defensive touchdown to get to that 45 number. But nevertheless, the defense, the drives versus SMU, slow start again. They got off decent versus Western Michigan, but 2 of the 3 games they've really struggled. Some putrid play calling from Jim Harbaugh and whoever's calling the plays, who I actually don't know the answer to who is actually calling the plays for this team right now. Take a look at number 2, Shea Patterson. Let Shea Patterson loose. He's a guy who can make all the throws. That throw to Zach Gentry in the first quarter is one of the most, if you look at it, just insane throws I've seen out of Michigan football quarterback in a long time. He had a guy diving at his knees. He threaded the needle over the top of a linebacker before the safety to Zach Gentry. And then we see him with Donovan-People. If you think about who you've got with Peoples-Jones and Shea Patterson, you have the number 1 quarterback coming out of high school in 2016, the number 1 wide receiver coming out of high school in 2017, a junior and a sophomore, and that leads to plays like this. They finally got it going in really 3 different ways. You got Peoples-Jones dragging from right to left to get into the end zone. You've got him on a fade, really a back shoulder fade route coming up here in just a moment, where Shea Patterson makes an amazing throw. And Peoples-Jones knew it was coming back shoulder and adjusted to it. This touchdown here is a play, frankly, that no Michigan quarterback last year would have come anywhere near to completing. And then it's just the go straight down the middle, give him a little juke, and take it deep. And so with that 3 touchdowns for Donovan Peoples-Jones, you got this last one coming up here. The fans in Ann Arbor are excited about it. That 40 to 45 yard range, that's where Michigan needs to be taking these deep shots downfield. Clearly Shea Patterson can make the throws. Donovan Peoples-Jones can outrun the guys. We've seen Nico Collins twice be able to go downfield. And with the emergence of Zach Gentry this past weekend with 4 catches for 95 yards, Michigan's got 3 legitimate downfield threats. When Tariq Black, if he returns mid-season, misses 5, 6, 7, 8 games, if he comes back, I believe you have 3 wide receivers and a tight end in Gentry that gives Shea Patterson a formidable, just air raid style offense. And with that, I want to see Michigan let Patterson throw the ball more than the 15, 16, 18 times he's been throwing in the last 2 weeks. Threw for 30 against Notre Dame. I still didn't think it was enough because they took almost no shots downfield. So answer me this question, Michigan Football Report viewers, fans of Chat Sports. How many passes will Shea Patterson attempt versus Nebraska? Go ahead, Facebook Live below. If you're watching on YouTube, also in the comments section. Type 1 if it's under 25. Type 2, I guess, if it's 25 or over, kind of going above there. I want to say 2. I need to say 2. They've done 2 straight weeks, really 3 straight weeks of developing the running game, and with 2 injuries to the top 2 running backs. You've got Karan Higdon missed last week. Chris Evans left the game this past week. You don't know what you're getting out of that running attack, and I don't think Michigan's going to be able to win the Big Ten, to beat Nebraska, to beat Michigan State and some of the other schools into November, unless they can throw the ball and really take advantage of what their best weapon on offense right now is, the right arm of number 2, Shea Patterson. So type 1 for over or for under. Type 2 if you think he's going to hit 25 or go over against Nebraska this Saturday in Ann Arbor, Michigan's Big Ten opener for the 2018 season. Keep it going. Number 3, we've got to build depth at running back. Higdon's injured. Chris Evans is injured. We're not sure if either one of them are going to play this week. I think Higdon is more likely than Evans. But True Wilson had to come in and get 11 carries this past week. He's a walk-on. I guarantee you, no one before spring practice had ever heard of True Wilson that follows Michigan football. So 11 carries for Wilson, 53 yards. You can't rely so heavily on Evans and on Higdon, because then you end up with a guy like True Wilson getting his first really action of the entire year. Those guys get injured. Could this be your starter? Where's Omari Samuel? Where are some of the players that they've recruited in the last 2 or 3 recruiting classes? It's tough to say. Where's Kareem Walker? Oh, we know where he is. He's not on the team anymore. The young guys got to step up. We got to have somebody who is more dynamic than True Wilson, although I think he did a decent job averaging 4.8 yards per carry and a touchdown. Certainly the best blocker I've seen from the running back position for Michigan this season. So got to get 4 or 5 guys some action, or at least the 4th, 5th guys down the roster if Evans and Higdon do not take snaps this Saturday. Next up, number 4. Come on, Ed Warner. Come on, Jim Harbaugh. Rotation at left tackle, right tackle. Against SMU, we had the game in hand the entire second half, especially after you ran, walk-off punt return, interception return for a touchdown on Saturday. You go in up 2 touchdowns to not get any snaps for Jalen Mayfield or James Hudson is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's absurd. Now, I told you a couple days ago on my last show that I was told from a very good source that Warner has some difference of opinion with some of the other Michigan coaches. I don't know exactly if it's Jim Harbaugh, maybe it's Pep Hamilton, maybe it's Jim McElwain, about what they should do with the offensive line. And what that means is some of the coaches that are ultimately making the final decisions, maybe Jim Harbaugh, wants to build continuity and see what Runyon, see what Juwan Bushell-Brady can do at left tackle, right tackle. Doesn't want to continue to mix it up or let some, kind of have just all kinds of different guys playing. And so with that, Jalen Mayfield and James Hudson did not get a single snap against SMU. That is uncalled for. That is ridiculous. I put a poll out on my Twitter account, got hundreds of votes. It's like 88% of people said, you have got to start Jalen Mayfield. You got to bench Little John Runyon, his dad being Big John. This is Little John Runyon, nowhere near the level of play of his dad. It was an all Big Ten offensive lineman and an NFL star for a number of years. Take a look next up, coming after we've got number 4, my 4 keys of the game. I want to talk to you about the new national championship odds that have come out. And this is not to make the playoff. This is to win the whole thing. I'm going to go over where this is. After game 1, Michigan plummeted when they lost to Notre Dame. Now the odds are starting to come back as other teams lose. But the really interesting thing here is Alabama is even money, plus 100. It means you put 100, it's just like betting a game. They're as likely to cover the spread this week against Texas A&M, which I think is a really high spread, something in the mid-20s, that they are to win the national title. So think about that. If you want to bet Texas A&M, Alabama this game with the spread, you have the same odds of that game as Alabama winning the entire national title. That is just mind-boggling how good they are, kind of like the Warriors in the NBA. They're just that better than the rest of the field. Clemson, Ohio State's odds are getting better. They're 3-0, survived a scare against TCU with Urban Meyer out. Georgia, Oklahoma, we know it's kind of, these are the 5 teams that have really separated themselves. We go into the next group of 5. Notre Dame sitting there undefeated. Washington with a loss. Then you've got Michigan and Wisconsin with a loss. Michigan, Wisconsin, Penn State, all with plus 3,000 odds. So to break that down for people like it's simple, 30-1 odds. You put $1 down and you win 30. You put 10, 300, 100, 3,000. That's the kind of odds Michigan has right now. So they are basically in a 3-way tie with Wisconsin and Penn State for the 7th best odds to win the national title as we stand right now, with Alabama being the massively overwhelming favorite at even money to win the national title. So really we can think about there, Alabama or the field, those are the odds right now, but Michigan coming in at number 7 on this list, 3-way tie. Number 8, my bad math, man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, tied for 8, 3-way tie with 8 with Big Ten rivals Penn State and Wisconsin. Go over the next 11 through 15, show you where else they're at, who Michigan has better odds than as of right now to win the national title. LSU with 2 of the best wins this entire season, 2 wins over top 10 teams at the time, plus 3,200. That's a pretty enticing bet for a lot of people, myself included, to put a little money on LSU. Now they're going against Alabama, and I think that's why the odds come down for them. They just see it's almost very unlikely they could beat Alabama. As such, they won't even get a chance. But if they did, and you made that bet, put 10, 50 bucks in that, whatever you want, you are going to come out huge should LSU have a breakthrough year in year 2 under Coach O at Orgeron. So take a look at that. Auburn with the loss to LSU, they dropped quite a bit. Stanford, some good money there. They are undefeated. They've got a big game going up to Autzen against Oregon. 4,800 plus 4,800 odds. West Virginia, Virginia Tech rounding at the top 15. Then it falls off a cliff after that. So these are kind of like the 15 teams that have any chance, according to the bookies, according to the bookmakers at BetDSI, to win the national title. So with that being said, would you, the viewer, Chat Sports Facebook Live, Chat Sports YouTube, Michigan Wolverines by Chat Sports Facebook Live, would you put money on the Wolverines to win the national title? Would you put 10 bucks down to just risk to say, hey, I get 300 on the other side? Would you put 50 down? Would you put 100 to win 3,000? If you do, go ahead. If you do want to do that, go ahead and do it at BetDSI. You can get 120% bonus money when you make a first deposit with them. It's chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code GOBLUE to get 120% bonus when you get going with BetDSI. You can make a bet like this. The odds are always changing. You can kind of keep an eye on them. Put some money down when you think you've got an advantage and win money. If you win, it's not gambling, right? The only way you can lose in gambling is if you stop gambling. Am I right? Am I right? Let's go on to number 5. Spy the quarterback, especially if it is Adrian Martinez, who had over 100 yards rushing in his only game of action against Colorado. Michigan has been crushed for a long time, but most notably again with Don Brown's defense, statistically phenomenal. But they have led guys like Trace McSorley and certainly JT Barrett and Dwayne Haskins when he got in the game last year. Just put 4 or 5 guys out, and then when the defense turns the back, just scoot up the field for 10, 15, 20 yards. Don Brown has been very stubborn, very, very stubborn about not switching away from his purely man defense, not going into any zone, not going into any spy. I can guarantee you if Adrian Martinez is healthy and Michigan doesn't change things up and spy him, he will have 75, 100, 125 yards, just depending on how loose Michigan wants to get with it in this game coming on Saturday, and that could put them in the position to have a big-time upset, a kind of momentum changer for the 0-2 Huskers under first-year coach Scott Frost. So if Martinez is in the game, Michigan's got to change something up because he might be the most mobile and certainly the most dangerous quarterback they're going to face this year when it comes to his feet. Next up, number 6 on Yoder's keys to the game, Rashawn Gary. Rashawn Gary, make some plays, man. I swear, I have been hyping you up to all my non-Michigan fans. I've been hyping you up in this show for two years since you came to Michigan. This is your 3rd year at the University of Michigan, and the plays just aren't there. You're not making the sacks. I quite much too often see Rashawn Gary taking the wrong angles, going outside when he needed to go inside, going inside when he needed to go outside. But Rashawn Gary has got to start making plays. He certainly is a talented player, but he is not living up statistically or from an impact perspective. The sacks, knocking the guys ball out of guys' hands, strip sacks, anything like that. He's just not making the impact. You would never look at Michigan's team if you never heard any of the players and say, hey, who's the best player? Who's the guy who was the number 1 recruit, the only consensus number 1 recruit, at least at the time, in the last 15 years in recruiting? All the services had number 1. I don't think anybody would look at Michigan's team and say, that guy right there, number 3, no questions asked. I think number 10, number 7, Chase Winovich as well. I think you have a lot of people you might say over Rashawn Gary when it comes to impacting the game. So Rashawn Gary, it's time to make plays, man. Make some plays. Next up on this bad boy. Sorry, Lena, she's held her ears. I'm screaming too loud, but Rashawn, you got to make plays. You got to overcome injuries on the defensive line. We're going to toss up the defensive line depth chart. We still have 2 players who are out with injuries. So you've got Aubrey Solomon, and you've got Lawrence Marshall. Now, with them being said, Carlo Kemp, Brian Monet have stepped in and made some plays. You see Kwity Paye over there backing up Chase Winovich. Aiden Hutchinson getting snaps in the last couple of games when Rashawn Gary has come out of the game. Kemp has played decent. Monet has played better. He actually was one of the better players for Michigan against SMU. Kwity Paye, nice, amazing hits coming around the outside where he just absolutely obliterated the SMU quarterback, knocked his helmet completely off his head. But as of now, Aubrey Solomon, I don't think we're going to see him back to at least the Penn State game. And Lawrence Marshall, where is he? Tough to say. I have no update on the injury of Marshall. He started game 1 against Notre Dame, so Michigan is playing 2 of their 4 positions with backup players as of right now. So you got to overcome those injuries, get those guys in position to start for maybe the rest of the year, depending on how Marshall and Solomon come back from injuries. Next up, number 8, gotta have less penalties. I swear it was a brutal game. It's been a brutal season when it comes to penalties. Way too many targeting calls. You've got 2 straight weeks I'm sorry, 2 out of 3 weeks, you've had a player get ejected from the game. You had Josh Metellus get ejected versus Notre Dame. That definitely hurt him. That, the next player, 2 plays after that, they went deep on Brad Hawkins, and the Notre Dame player outjumped him, outplayed Hawkins. Touchdown, Notre Dame gets it rolling. Then you've got Khaleke Hudson this week, another penalty, another targeting call, put his head down. I'm not saying that he's not playing football, but somehow Michigan's got to do a better job. The penalties this year are way up, undisciplined football. Surprisingly, a lot of it's on the defense. There hasn't been as many penalties on the putrid offensive line, the left tackle, right tackle, who shouldn't be starting, as I would have thought. It is all, majority on the defense. Too many pass interference, too many late hits on the quarterback or targeting, and you're going to be without a player in Khaleke Hudson for the first half of this game on Saturday versus Nebraska. So you got to limit the penalties. Next up, number 9 on my keys to the game, you've got to stop the slant route. We saw against SMU that Michigan plays that tight man coverage. It doesn't have anybody kind of dropping back to stop those slant routes, and it's very easy, even with SMU level receivers against Michigan level quarterbacks. If you make one step and you get in, you can get the ball 3-4 yards, and if you break one tackle, you've got a 10 to 15 yard gain, and Michigan has done nothing to stop that. They haven't changed their man-to-man coverages when they face teams like this, and Nebraska will exploit it if Michigan does not change how they do things. So Michigan's got to keep an eye out for the slant. Both quarterbacks can throw that slant, and then Michigan's got to be very, they've got to be aware of it. And certainly the cornerbacks and their safeties and linebackers have to be put in a position by the coaching staff to adjust to the slants that Nebraska is going to bring out, that Nebraska saw SMU exploit, and that Michigan has been very susceptible in previous seasons under Don Brown and his very aggressive defense. So that is my 9th key to the game. Before I get to number 10, one last time, tell you about Reveal Suits. You've only got a day or two to get the suit discount, the pre-sale discount of $100. I'm going to keep showing this bad boy because I just like looking at it in my camera. You take a look on the screen, $100 off. You get the Michigan football, maize and blue on the inside. You get the maize lining, the blue block M. It even goes up the sleeves. You'll walk into a meeting and people will just be like, whoa, where'd you get that coat from? I want to buy one. If they're opposing teams, you can just do one of these all day long. Put your wallet, put your phone there. Make sure they've got to see the maize and blue. And you can get that from Reveal Suits. It's what's inside. Email them, info@revealsuits.com. My clothing outside my sports jackets is also always provided by Mizzen & Main. I'm wearing one of the Performance Fabric stretch shirts, long sleeve. It's my favorite shirt I own as of right now. Mizzen & Main provides all the shirts I wear on every show, and all the guys here at Chat Sports. Go check them out. Comfortable.af is the website. These shirts are comfortable as F. I wear the shirts of other brands, Banana Republic. I sweat my A off walking through the streets in September when it's 90 degrees. Mizzen & Main barely drop a sweat because they keep it all inside Performance Fabrics. All right, number 10 on my keys to the game for Michigan football versus Nebraska. You got to crush their spirit. How do you crush the spirit of a team that's 0-2, of a team that lost a heartbreaker in the opener against Colorado, lost their quarterback in that game, had to start a walk-on at quarterback in game 2, and lost to Troy? Where's Troy? No one even knows where Troy is. I would bet 99% of college football fans have no idea where Troy is, what league they're in. So you can't let Nebraska hang on. You can't go into the middle of the second quarter like you did against SMU, tied at 0. You can't let them drive down like you did SMU with a chance to kick a field goal, score a touchdown to tie it up at halftime, and rely on the defense to make an amazing pick-6 interception to end the half. You got to crush their spirit, get up 21-0, get up 14-0 in the first quarter, knock the head off their quarterback, keep coming with blitzes. Make sure if Adrian Martinez is the quarterback, anytime he runs, you're putting a body on him. You're making sure he regrets it the next time that he does. So those are my 10 keys to the game for Michigan versus Nebraska this Saturday in the Big House in Ann Arbor. And stick with us here on Chat Sports. I'm going to come back tomorrow. I'm going to give you my 5 players whose stock was up, 3 players whose stock was down versus SMU, and 3 people who have something to prove as Michigan goes on the rest of the season. 9 Big Ten games this year in 2018. I am James T. Yoder. Follow me on Twitter at James T. Yoder, the face of Michigan football. And I will see you back with Stock Up, Stock Down tomorrow.